Okay, just got done doing my top 5 movies of 2018, and in that I mentioned that even though I saw a lot of movies, it wasn't exactly the biggest year for movies, at least for me personally. There were an awful lot of heavy hitters, but not in the frequency that I was kind of expecting it to be, even though it was blockbuster after blockbuster, sequel after sequel, whatever. However, I think I can safely say it was a terrific year for games. And I think it's also safe to say that I watch as much movies as I do play video games and vice versa, as you can see right here. And there was just so much to play and so much to really talk about and be in the know of for the gaming community. Some would say maybe a little bit too much, and I think I may have overdone it a little bit this year when it came to gaming, so much so that even some games were left unfinished, and that really bugged my OCD. However, I was able to compile all the games that I managed to play this year and broke it down to a top 5 games of 2018. Let's get right into it. For a split second there, I was trying not to rip off Rich of Review Tech USA. I feel like that's his new catchphrase, and I do not want to step on it. Alright, number 5 is actually the one entry amongst my entire list here that was kind of being swapped around between 3 principal games, but after marinating on it and thinking about it very thoroughly, I settled on just one entry, one game here, and that is Detroit Become Human. Primarily on the notion that this is actually one of the more replayable entries that I have, not only in this top 5 list, but also in the ones, when you compare this to the other ones that I was kind of tossing around that you'll probably get to see in my honorable mentions. But Detroit Become Human told an excellent narrative that was completely tailored to me. I can't believe I'm saying this, but in the time that we're living on right now, a Quantic Dream game, specifically Detroit Become Human, was able to out Telltale, especially since I feel bad for saying this, but Telltale is kind of sort of no more. And even when it was on, they were starting to fall into a template, so to speak. Detroit Become Human is able to go into the confines that Telltale wasn't exactly able to really squeeze into their architecture, especially because they were still dealing with that engine. What's awesome about Detroit is that, yeah, it takes a story that we might have seen in movies and TV shows, but we never really seen an awful lot of in games, and that is a story that delves into really smart science fiction, whether it be, whether somebody's human or not, and how can you tell to separate the rights of those who are human versus those who are not human. And some could argue, and I definitely understand why you see this, of Detroit possibly wearing that on its sleeve a little too much, a little too on the nose. And don't get me wrong, there's moments where it does kind of strike a little too hard on that theme, to the point where there's a little bit of imagery here and there where I'm like, okay, that's a bit much there. All right, I get what you're trying to say. With that being said, there's so many things about the narrative and the way you're able to construct the narrative around your 3 principal characters, Connor, Marcus, and God, I feel terrible, but I'm forgetting the girl's name. These 3 androids and their specific stories and how I'm able to kind of interweave them, it really did feel like a journey. And the game is often put, at least this game specifically, was putting the term journey in its marketing an awful lot, and I was starting to kind of like not believe it. However, as I progressed and I kept wondering, oh, what's going to happen to Marcus? What's going to happen to Connor? What's going to happen to the girl? I was asking myself, it was almost like I was playing the game as if it was a really good first season of a show that had this premise, and Detroit definitely felt that way. And it also warrants a replay because at the end of every chapter, it gives you how things would have played out. Not specifically, it doesn't break down each event point by point, but at least it gives you like a little tree of how many things you could have exactly done, whether it be wrong or right. And that's just enough for me to go, man, I would really not mind playing this in the future, maybe even with my girlfriend, so that she can make the choices and I can kind of see them unfold, so that her narrative of Detroit could be different from my narrative. And at the same time, all these characters and also the actors portraying them do a terrific job. Of course, my favorite was Connor, mainly because there's moments where I feel like an android, and that's precisely how I'll probably be behaving. Alright, so please try your best not to be pissed off, but at the same time, I think when you think about all the other games that came out this year, it's a kind of a miraculous feat that this game managed to fit into the number 4 spot. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. By God, it's back, baby. It is back. Just recently did a review on the game. Go and check it out. It's a little bit on the long side. I pre-apologize for that. But in short, this is quintessential Smash Brothers, and it does not get any better than that. And what's really striking about Smash Brothers that I kind of want to reiterate, but at the same time put it in a very different way, is that this game also reminded me why I loved the first Smash Bros. In the first place. When it came out, and made me go, I need to have that as a very little kid. And I was like, that needs to be in my N64 collection. And that's because I love all these characters, and I love the concept of them existing in a unified universe. That was super redundant. And they're fighting, but they're not necessarily fighting in a very malevolent way. They're fighting because they all have this like sincere respect for each other. And sure, the subliminal premise of Smash Brothers is that there's a kid playing with the toys, and the toys kind of come alive in his imagination. Hence the Crazy Hand, the Master Hand. However, I try to not really believe too much into that, and think more so to myself that these are beloved Nintendo characters that are trying to have a friendly and very competitive edge, so that each franchise can just progress more than the other one did in terms of quality. And just think about it. We're living a time where we have a console that you can have console experiences with on the go, and in 1 year we got a great Zelda, a great Mario, we got a new Smash Brothers, we got some Wii U ports of some great other first party content like Donkey Kong, so on and so forth, Kirby even. And it's becoming a brand new renaissance for these characters. And no other way is there a better way to do it than to have a renaissance version of Smash Brothers. Okay, so check it here. Red Dead Redemption 2 is my number 3 game. This is the game that everybody, when it first came out, was touting as Game of the Year. But then the more that they played, and here we are after Red Dead Online, not exactly as spectacular as we were expecting it to be, but just wait until they throw in those space cars and the obstacles. Anyways, that withstanding, Red Dead Redemption 2, along with many other entries in this list that you're about to see, just bring it home why single-player experiences do not need to die, and are probably not going to be dying anytime soon. Sure, it's a little, I don't want to say archetypal, but very familiar in that traditional Rockstar way whenever you pop in a Grand Theft Auto game or Red Dead Redemption game or anything that's kind of in between, maybe even Bully. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is able to utilize the technology they have now, and just how far they're able to push the PS4 and the Xbox One with its visual fidelity, because despite having more entries to go here in my top 5, this, amongst the 5, is actually the best looking game in the system. In terms of just how it holds up, the design, the lighting is absolutely breathtaking. And then also, to boot, they're able to retrofit it to a spectacular environment that feels alive, with characters that feel alive, and that I had to say goodbye to when I was done with my 60-hour playthrough. And when I'm done with the game after playing for 60 hours and I feel a little on the edge, or I would even go as far as to say a little sad to say goodbye to some of these characters for the time being, and I'm not trying to allude to any spoilers, but I'm just saying the fact that the game's coming to an end, you know, that's just a testament to the quality and the way that Rockstar is able to tell a story in a way where it's because of that progression and that episodic feel of how some of these characters are one thing at the beginning and are a completely different thing at the end in a sprawling Western epic. Once again, going into number 2, I feel like I'm already spoiling my number 1, just like I did with the movies, so I'm just going to go forward and say it. Number 2 is God of War. This is one game that was able to edge out a little bit over Red Dead Redemption 2, primarily on the gameplay factor, because both games are gorgeous and are able to tell I can't even talk. I cannot even talk. Wow, I'm just so nerding out about this, but it's the story and the visual fidelity that's just on par with Red Dead Redemption 2 and how epic they're able to be in those facets. But I felt like God of War was able to edge it out slightly, no pun intended because of the axe, but gameplay wise, there was this dynamic, intense, and multi-layered depth to the gameplay of God of War, with the way that it was able to overhaul itself completely from the traditional God of War that you've always known to something brand new, but at the same time kind of feels familiar and also original at the same time, that it doesn't feel like it's borrowing from other things, just like some other things that came out this year that were borrowing from God of War. But this time God of War was kind of able to step out of that those confines, and just like we matured as gamers when we played those original God of War games and we couldn't wait to get that sex mini game so we can play and check out the titties. I'm over exaggerating partially. Now here we have matured, and it's completely just mind-boggling in the best sense of the word or the term that God of War was able to mature along with us. We're older, we're wiser, and we're ready to move on to bigger and greater things, and God of War was able to do that exceptionally, visually, aesthetically, tonally, story-driven wise, and gameplay wise, giving you something smarter to think about with how you approach enemies, how you approach the environment, and how you're able to kind of navigate through this environment while at the same time feeling as immersed as you possibly could with the one-shot camera as Kratos, who he in turn has himself matured as well. Alright, it is more or less time to bring it home, but before I do got some honorable mentions for my games of 2018, because again, I played quite a few games this year, so much so that I felt like I kind of did myself a disservice to both myself and some of those games that I played. But in my honorable mentions are some highlights that I thought to myself, you know what, these games, they should be talked about. A Way Out, I finally managed to play this with my girlfriend, and it does something very clever and very effective with its two-player co-op, because normally I'm not a co-op guy, whether it be locally or online, and being that there's practically no choice here except unless I was to have both controllers in my hand, I guess I could maybe try to do that, but who better to play for me than my girlfriend? And I had to tailor this to her schedule and played it in a episodic sort of way, but it ended up being worth it because it's able to utilize that co-op functionality in a very wise way, not only for both the gameplay, but also for the story, all leading up to an ending that makes me go, oh, that's why you did that, huh? Plus the director, he's crazy in the best way possible. Yeah, I love them. And then I got a couple of games, and these were the two games that were battling it out with Detroit for the number 5 spot, but ultimately I chose Detroit over them. And they are Monster Hunter World, which I literally just beat earlier today during the recording of this video, and it's only because I just discovered, well, I didn't really just discover, I knew about this, but I finally experimented with the multiplayer co-op in that game, and that was the only way I was able to bring that game to its credits. Because prior to that, I was going in at alone, but at least I knew that even if the story is a little bit on the weaker side, and plus that girl is always saying, we, and I'm like, you're not doing anything, you fucking lazy bum. This was one of the few games that's able to take a technically or fundamentally repetitive cycle of going in, killing monsters, harvesting the loot and the materials, building better gear, and then going out and finding some bigger and stronger monsters, and made that in a sense addictive to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm comprehending why this game is getting Game of the Year tenure, and that's because it has that very addictive feeling of going and doing those cycles while at the same time just checking off all those quests, and then also encouraging your exploration while at the same time just feeding into that RPG itch that I've been having for some time. And lastly, the other game that was in the running for the number 5 spot but didn't really make it through, but it was just on the edge of it, Celeste. Celeste is a game that I managed to play on the Switch at the, I don't want to say at the very last second, but within the last couple of months of the year. And I'm glad that I did, because normally I'm not a 2D platformer guy. I barely had a good time for Super Mario or Legend of Zelda back in the day on the NES. I like those games, but whenever I try to jump into something else that had that challenging edge, that had that aspect of it that's like, hey, if you're not focused, you're going to die repeatedly. And that happens an awful lot with Celeste. But what really surprised me is that it never pushed me to the point of rage quit. Yes, it pissed me off a handful of times, but I felt like every time that I died in this game and I had a game over, I felt like I was actually learning. I felt like I was learning through the gameplay of what it is that I needed to do to be able to climb this mountain and overcome the obstacles that were in my way. But it was also a cool way to progress the narrative that is all about overcoming obstacles, both literally in the sense of the mountain and also figuratively with your inner demons, because Celeste is able to tailor the gameplay to the story that was very near and dear to me, that, you know, kind of struck something special with me. And to be honest, like I said, the more I talk about it, the more I almost kind of want to make a last minute swap between Detroit and Celeste, because Celeste is able to tackle those themes about mental illness and stuff like that, but at the same time not make it super depressive and still bring a sense of color and a sense of wonder to that in the way that video games can. And I'm glad that Celeste was the one to do it. Oh, and lastly, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I want to give an honorary award. Like, this is not a part of the top 5 games, but it is basically an acceptance. It's almost like a Hall of Fame inductee, so to speak, to my line of consoles and my video game library and my video game influence now as a late 20-something male individual. But it is the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch, I don't know what I'll be doing without this thing this year. I mean, it's not just because we got Smash Brothers, I managed to play Super Mario Odyssey, but also I managed to play Celeste. And also managed to play so many other games that I don't think I would have been exposed to if it wasn't for this thing, because I'm now an adult, I'm late in my 20s, I'm trying to get a career up and going while at the same time working in retail. And because of how busy I am, I managed to be able to squeeze in some periodic moments of gaming because of this thing. Nintendo, sometimes you'll be fucking up, but this is one of the few things you've gotten so right recently, and I feel like it's going to be one of the most right things you've ever done in your time here on this earth. And with that said, here is my number 1 game of 2018. Just roll the clip, come on. I hate this. I hate this because it just makes me so fucking biased. My number 1 movie, spoilers, is a Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse. And now here I am proclaiming my favorite game of 2018 to be Spider-Man. Marvel's Spider-Man, exclusively on the PlayStation 4 from Insomniac. And again, I did a review on the game, so you can go and check out how I feel about every aspect of the game, but there's no other way that I can possibly summarize why I love this game so much, none other than to say that this is one of the only games that I played in this entire year, actually the only game that I want to go back to in 100%. I'm never an 100% guy. I never want 100% a game. I never want to get the platinum trophy. I don't give a shit about those things. I really don't. And here I am, just counting down the days till I can hop back in and swing through New York City, trying to get every trophy, trying to get 100% of the game, and then eventually jump into those 3 episodes of the City of Never Sleeps, I think it's called, DLC that tells more Spider-Man stories. And they put the Raimi suit. Oh my god, what have you done, Insomniac? What have you done? I got games to play. I got other games to play. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you making me going back and playing a game I repeat? And I guess there's no other way to really describe what is essentially my favorite game of 2018. That's my top 5 games of the year. Post in the comments below, what are your guys' favorite games of the year? Doesn't necessarily have to be 5. I know games are expensive, so I don't really blame you, but whatever you played in 2018, let me know. What were your favorite games? What were your favorite moments? And what are you looking forward to more so in gaming when it comes to 2019? I know we got already a, decent lineup here in the first three or 4 months or so of the year, so there's plenty to talk about there. Post in the comments, make sure to like and share this video, don't forget to subscribe, and also hit the notification button so you know exactly when videos or live streams go live on this channel. And make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and more importantly, Twitch.tv. I'm trying to hit 50 followers over there on Twitch.tv. I would really appreciate it, guys. Hit me a follow over there. Dark Spider David is the name. and I'll catch you guys all on the next one. See you later. And yes, the show still has that very Saturday morning cartoon feel based on its frenetic pacing, the way it just kind of quickly transitions from one shot to the next, and then you also have, you know, that bombastic music and the way the characters also tell their lines.
Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!